NTA, you can't beat the rich.
This is the network service of the NTA.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. David Ajibade with the Brain and Body Foundation, and welcome to your Health in Your Hands. Today we're going to be talking about inflammation again. And I know we've talked about it a few other times, but from the feedback we've been getting, we see that there's a lot more that still needs to be discussed in this area. And since it's such a really important topic, we felt we should spend another time just going over it again. And inflammation is, in my opinion, one of what we would call the key pillars of health in the human body. I remember years and years back, I was watching this documentary. It was called The Commanding Heights, basically talking about the key pillars in the economy of governments. Like, for instance, I think this one was about Russia and the US, how oil, petrol, crude oil is one of the key pillars. I mean, he who controls the crude oil availability and supply really, to a very large extent, influences a lot of what happens in government. Other things were like electricity, coal, and other things. So those are what I liked the term commanding heights. I know it may be a little too much to bring it into the health area, but I'm just going to use that word, commanding heights. The commanding heights of the human body. What really are the key things, the key processes that if you focus on them, if you focus on saying, let's make sure that these parameters in this area are controlled, you can be almost guaranteed you're going to have a healthy life, have a healthy, long life. One of them is obviously oxygen supply. If you were to ask any physician, any doctor, any layperson really, what is the most important thing for the human body? Obviously, it's the oxygen, because you can't really live for very long without adequate oxygen supply. Well, it's not just about you living. The cells of your body all need adequate amounts of oxygen, and cells differ from cells in that regard. The brain cells, for instance, need a lot more oxygen than maybe your liver cells. I don't know. It differs from area and organ to organ. As a matter of fact, we find out that many cancers, certain kinds of harmful microbes, bacteria, fungi, tend to thrive in oxygen low environment, low density oxygen environments. They don't have enough oxygen, and therefore they thrive in that area. Our cells, on the other hand, cannot exist without oxygen. So you find those bacteria, fungi, whatever it is, multiplying and basically killing and causing disease in the human body in areas where there's no oxygen. The same thing with cancer as well. What else? Blood flow. Blood flow is, to me, another commanding height. If you don't have enough blood flow, obviously, blood is what takes the oxygen to the cells. Another thing to me hugely important is what's called oxidative stress, free radical damage. You should see that on the screen right now. Free radical damage. Your body is always in the process of metabolizing, is functioning, is growing, is building, is tearing down. The process of this ongoing process of living is producing waste products, the same way your car produces waste products from burning fuel that goes out through the exhaust pipe, while your body produces toxins and waste products from metabolism. these must be removed from the body. One way to do this is by using antioxidants. So free radical damage, oxidative stress, the same word, mean the same thing, are also key pillars, key commanding heights of the human body. If your body is able to get rid of all those waste products effectively enough, you will be healthy. Another one, which we've talked about, is inflammation, and that's why we're going over this. What is inflammation? We'll talk about that. Inflammation is basically your body's reaction or response to insult or injury. That insult could be anything as small as an irritation, or it could be as damaging as a road traffic accident when you hit your brain, hit your head, God forbid, and you have a concussion and there's bleeding and all that, and the brain basically reacts to that injury. All right, so let's look at the board and let's see what we can say about inflammation. Okay, so let's assume this is the surface. Just think of any surface in the body. It could be your skin, it could be the lining of your gut, it could be your blood vessel, the lining of your blood vessel. So let's assume this is just a lining. Now, there are all kinds of things that can cause injury. One could be an infection. It could be toxins. It could be, what else again? Chemicals. It could be too much sugar. Sugar can be very, very, very toxic, especially in high levels, to your to any part of your body, really. It could just be that you're not getting enough oxygen, so just low levels of oxygen. Anytime, because remember, these are cells. Everything that lines your body, any surface of your body is lined by cells. And so anything that affects a cell, that causes damage, irritation to a cell, is going to cause what is known as inflammation. And inflammation, as we described before, is mediated, controlled by the immune system. So as soon as there's damage, as soon as something is irritating your cells, the cells of the immune system are mobilized and they are alerted, so they go to where that damage is. They don't just go there, they try to seal off the place, but also in the process of trying to fix the problem, they send out a lot of these chemicals. These chemicals, you don't have to remember, they're called cytokines, but they are chemical signals that attract more white blood cells, but they also attract things like platelets, is also in the blood system, and even red blood cells. The whole idea is really to fix this problem. Sometimes the white blood cells do a great job and they fix it, they resolve it, and you look at the injury site and it's like nothing ever happens. So everything just goes back to normal. Many times, especially in the older age groups or those who are sick or have a chronic condition, many times that is not completely healed. That is not completely taken care of, and eventually some things like scar tissue form, so you don't have that smooth surface anymore. In addition to that, it could just continually, instead of the white blood cells doing their job and leaving, it just ends up being a chronic ongoing process, constantly bringing more cells, constantly bringing more cells, constantly causing damage, constantly repairing, constantly causing damage. This is what is known as chronic inflammation. We'll be right back. Welcome back. So we are talking about inflammation. Now, we cannot over-talk about it. We cannot overemphasize it, because that is the key to 98%. According to the experts, 98% of all disease starts with inflammation. Okay, and remember, inflammation it could be just a simple insult to the body. It could be an injury. It could simply be that your cells are not getting enough nutrition. Once your cells are not getting enough nutrition, once they are being irritated, once they are being angered, they're going to react. And it's always the same reaction. It's always inflammation. Doesn't matter what the source is. Doesn't matter what the provocation is. It's always inflammation. So that's just your body's general way of responding to stress. And so once you understand this, that your body will react to it, you understand that this is going on throughout in your body because your body is constantly in the process of being attacked and repaired. So we drew that in the last segment. Now, if you think about this as a conduit pipe, I don't want to say blood vessel because blood vessel is one of them. And I'm hoping you can understand where we're coming from with this. So let's say this pipe, right, could be your gut, your digestive system. So stomach, small intestine, large intestine. It could be your blood vessels. It could be the lungs, those passages in the lungs, the bronchi, the trachea, bronchioles. It's hard to remember my anatomy now. It's been so many years ago. It could be in the kidneys. These are all tubes that go through all these different organs. Again, if there's anything going on, so if these are blood vessels, for instance, if you have a lot of sugar in your blood vessels, your blood sugar is too high, it is going to irritate. If you are having like heavy metals or you have too much of cholesterol, for instance, that could irritate. If you're not having enough oxygen, that could irritate your blood vessels. So once that happens, because the blood vessels are everywhere in your body, they take blood to the brain, to the heart, the lungs, the bones, and everything. If these areas are constantly being irritated, your body is constantly repairing, constantly irritated, constantly repairing, is going to eventually cause some kind of degree of either blockage or damage that can result in parts and fragments of the walls breaking off and causing things like strokes or heart attacks or problems in the lungs or problems in the bones. And we see this a lot with sickle cell disease patients. Again, sickle cell diseases, we're number one in the world, but the majority, in fact, I'm very careful about saying all, but I'm pretty sure we can say all when it comes to sickle cell disease. They have high levels of inflammation, not just in their blood vessels, but in their brains, their hearts, their lungs, their bones. As a matter of fact, many of them have damage to their hip joints because of inflammation, from infection, from repair, from loss of blood supply, lack of nutrition, and even in the kidneys as well. I'm just using these as the examples, but you can imagine that we have 12 systems in our bodies, and all these systems have organs. So all the organs in this system, all the organs in these systems are affected if inflammatory levels are high. Again, inflammation is not just about the immune system, and we drew that picture. Inflammation is what the immune system produces as a result of the trigger. So again, the immune system, those white blood cells, they send out a lot of signals. Those chemical signals can be damaging to the cells and linings of the tubes and passages in your body. It's not just the immune system that sends out cells. If there is an infection, the viruses, the bacteria, some worms, those too can send out infection. So it's like war. It's like a battlefield. The immune cells are trying to destroy the cell, the bacteria, the microbes. The microbes are trying to defend themselves. They are shooting their own cannons. So what suffers, of course, is the terrain in which they are operating that suffers. Again, I'm highlighting the tubes because I would say majority of our disease happens as a result of the tubes, the damage to the tubes, the blood vessels, the guts, the lungs, the kidneys, and other parts of the body. Not just the organs themselves, but the tubes that bring nutrients and bring white blood cells and red blood cells to the part of the organ. Now, here's the challenge. I'm saying all this again to emphasize that where you can stop this, and believe me, you have an inflammation in your body right now. It's just a degree. it may be bad, but you're not really experiencing it. But where you can come in is to assume that, yes, there's inflammation going on in my body, especially if you're above the age of 30. You need to say, okay, what are the anti-inflammatory things I can do to bring down the inflammation? We've talked about diet. We've talked about emotional stress. We've talked about, even, I hope we've talked about loneliness. In fact, I was watching one talk recently, and they said they are finding out that chronic loneliness is worse for your body than smoking or even not exercising at all. Worse, and even bad diets, that chronic loneliness is worse than those three things. And we used to think that there's nothing that could be worse than having a bad diet. Nothing could be worse than not exercising. And yes, they said it's even worse than smoking. So that's another factor that you have to understand and factor in. We've spoken about the laws of life. I hope you would go back to our videos and check out the laws of life and inflammation. I can't talk about it much here. So back to what you can do. We've talked about fruits and vegetables. In addition to that, most people I know simply do not, on a consistent basis, take enough fruits and vegetables to keep their inflammation levels low. So in addition to that, as you know, I'm big on nutrition and supplements. One of our challenges in the foundation was providing these nutrition at a cheap price. Now we get, for most parts, for the kids that we support, we get many of them we get some of them free of charge, and therefore we give them out to you free of charge. That is parents who come to our center. But our challenge was, okay, what happens when these run out? How can we continue to serve these kids, but at a very cheap rate? And that's been one of my quests, really. I just came back from a trip to the US to look for cheaper ways of helping these kids without having to rely on these big companies that whenever they feel like they will give us their supplements. And we're getting pretty close to getting something that really works at, I guess, a fraction of the cost. So stay tuned, especially for those of you in Abuja. But the key is you have to take something that you can take on a daily basis to say, yes, I'm aware that inflammation is going on in my body, and I'm aware that it is my responsibility to keep inflammation in check. So what are those nutrients that keep inflammation in check? We will be right back. See you soon. Welcome back to Your Health in Your Hands. What should I be taking on a daily basis to keep inflammation in check? The cheapest things I have found that are also effective are vitamin D3. You gotta take vitamin D3. You gotta take good amounts of that. By the way, the recommendation of 400 international units is, quite frankly, I don't know what word it is, but it's far below what you should be getting, especially if you're black, especially if you're not staying in the sun long enough, especially if you're not having a good diet. So as you're not. I mean, you're looking at me now. You know that you're not staying in the sun, out in the sun long enough. So you need to take vitamin D3. I would say some people say between 5,000 and 10,000 international units is more. The word is more reasonable. It's a more reasonable sum to think of. And you're saying that, well, who am I to speak against the authorities who have said who have declared in their wisdom that this is the right amount? I'll tell you now, you need 5,000 to 10,000 international units of vitamin D3 on a daily basis. Another thing you need for your immune system is zinc. Another thing you need for your immune system is magnesium. These will help not just your immune system now, but your blood vessels as well. And again, you can get more information on our site. You've got to keep inflammation in check. I didn't mention this before, but you hear things like pneumonia for the lungs. You hear things like osteomyelitis for the bones. You hear things about like nephritis for the kidneys, and of course, well, you don't really hear carditis too much, but you hear things like what's this called? Meningitis. Yes, meningitis for the brain, or encephalitis. These are all, anytime you see the word itis, I-T-I-S, is speaking about inflammation as a suffix at the end of any word. If you see itis, it means inflammation. And if you hear inflammation, it means that the immune system is at work. And in some cases, also there's an infection at work as well. So again, I can't overemphasize this. You've got to keep inflammation in check, have it controlled. And the best way you can do that is by taking the right kind of nutrients into your body. Now, there are packages, there are supplements that function specifically to improve your inflammation. Now, like I was saying in the last segment, I said we had a challenge. Each bottle that we're giving out to kids with cerebral palsy, seizures, each bottle would cost about $100 if we were to sell them. Again, we're giving them out for free, and they have been helping kids tremendously. So again, I was like, man, this is going to run out soon, and they are running out. And I'm like, gosh, how can we continue to sustain this at a cheaper rate that maybe we can get support for? Because anybody who sees yet giving a kid $100, that's the 6,000 naira worth of supplements for a bottle. We're giving some kids up to 10 bottles of supplements, depending on how severe their condition was. And they were getting tremendous results, but again, we couldn't maintain that. So we're trying to see if we can bring it down to like 5,000, 10,000 naira. And like I said in the last segment, we're getting close to that. But we found out something that's locally made that can, cheaper than the price range that I just called, that can be used for that purpose. And one of my staff has been having severe chest pains and coughing and all that, and he of course taking the right medication, he's gone to see the doctor and all that, but it didn't help out. So clearly there was a weakness in his lungs because of all the chest pains and the coughing, and so we decided, well, let's see if we can address inflammation using nutrients. And this Nigerian-made nutrient supply, inflammation complex, he started using it, and it helped. It helped a great deal. Now remember, this is not treating the condition. This is strengthening the body in certain areas. Again, it's addressing one of the commanding heights. If you can control inflammation, you can go a very, very long way towards helping and improving the health of that organ system. So if you want to find out more about it, of course, just go to our website, brainandbodyfoundation.org, and hopefully we'll see how we'll make them available for the kids. Remember, we deal with kids with brain disorders, everything from cerebral palsy to epilepsy to seizures. Autism is another thing that has a lot of inflammation, by the way. Sickle cell disease, major inflammation all over the body. Going on further, pneumonia. Many adults die of pneumonia, and in their later years, that's inflammation. People who have strokes, again, is due to inflammation. Heart disease, atherosclerosis, inflammation going on. Kidney disease. Many people who have kidney damage and have to have dialysis is because of ongoing inflammation that has caused irreparable damage that has now warranted the need for a kidney dialysis, or worse, a kidney transplant. Your body has the capacity to address inflammation. It just needs help. And that help can come from the right building blocks vis-a-vis the right nutrition. Remember, omega-3s. Did I mention omega-3s? I mentioned vitamin D. All right, excuse me. We were giving our kids with all these brain disorders mega doses, well, not mega doses, but good amounts of omega-3s. And those omega-3s were helping in so many different ways, especially when it came to brain health, especially when it came to brain conditions. So omega-3s are huge for inflammation. I'm sorry I didn't mention it earlier. So omega-3s, vitamin D3, zinc, magnesium can help out too. What else can we talk about with regards to nutrition and inflammation? Come to our website. Go check it out on our website. Again, we're always looking for supports. We're always looking for help with our work with kids. Every Friday, you can come to our clinic. You will receive free medical attention, free medications, free consultation. You will probably see me, and I'll sit down with you and talk through it all at the Brain and Body Center. So we are here to serve, and we will continue to do so as we get support as well. So God bless. Stay tuned, and then we'll see you next week. God bless.